Hi everybody, Adam Steele from the Hot Pole Studios here, and as you can see I've just kind of got out of the shower, so I'm a bit but this is quite a long video, prior warning. This is me mixing a song that is going to be entered into the Eurovision Song Contest. I filmed this a couple of days ago and I've just got the mix revisions back from the client, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. And this is one of those videos where I've never seen any of the files for the song before the day that I've been given this track. This isn't something I've recorded, this is just something that I've mixed. So, hope you enjoy this rather long video. Thanks for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hot Pole Studios. I'm Adam Steele, and this, as you can see, is not the Hot Pole Studios. This is actually my new home setup. I've been asked to do a mix by an old friend of mine, Ricky, and the deadline is tomorrow. So I figured this would be a good opportunity to talk you guys through how I would do a mix, start to finish, on a song I've never heard, using Reaper, and generally using Slate Everything Bundle to mix. And also it gives me a chance to test out my hardware in this new setup. As you can see, I've not got a proper lighting setup or anything set yet, but I'm doing this as kind of a funky new setup. I'm using an Audience ID4 for my kind of mix station. I've got my dedicated headphone amp, using my laptop to mix on, but I've also got a machine behind that with all the crazy streaming stuff on. This isn't going out live, apologies for that. The reason that I'm recording this and then broadcasting it later is that if anything goes horribly wrong with this technical setup, that'll at least give me some time to fix it. If nothing goes wrong, then next time I do something like this, it will be live. So, without further ado, apologies for the grisly voice, by the way, because we've all been full of a cold in my family this week. So, first thing to do is, this is an empty Reaper session, and I've been sent all the files. Don't need that noise. But I have been told that this project is at 116 BPM, which is what I've put in at the bottom here. That will help me if there's anything that I want to keep to a click. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to hit the insert button on my keyboard. And insert button and find where I've put these files. So I've made, yeah, a Banana Ranch folder, because that's the name of the band, Banana Ranch. Hilarious. And, oh yeah, he said keys are only a guide, but they've not actually sent me any MIDI. Uh-oh. Well, we'll work with what we have, so I'm going to import all of these and just hit open. It'll ask me if you want to be on separate tracks or a single track, and of course in this case they're separate tracks. MIDI single channel items on multiple tracks, so I can see what's going on. Same again. Yes, yes. And I've imported all of these, not at bar 1. Something that you may think that I'm being kind of irresponsible, but I'm doing it very much on purpose. That I import all of my stuff away from bar 1. There's an interesting little trick that I've learned. Because what happens if you need a bit of a build-up before the song, or you need a count-in or anything? Rather than having to go in and manually move everything, just give yourself that space. Also, apologies if when I'm talking if you hear some horrible kind of background noise. That's because this room has the boiler for the house in it, which is kind of awkward. But you run with what you have, don't you? We moved to this house because we have our little baby and she needed a room of her own. And so this home mixing setup got shoved in this room. We'll have to have a look at why the capture card keeps dropping out like that. See, technical issues. I said there would be some. There's always some somewhere. Why does it keep making that noise? That's really annoying. Okay, so anywho, there's no... What? what even is dropping out there? Whenever I catch something, it seems to drop the screen out. Okay, let's leave that for now and just not touch it. Let's hit play and pull up the faders and see what this song sounds like, because I've not heard this song at all. Okay, so it's a pop song and it all sounds very messy, so we're going to have to build this back up from scratch. First thing I am going to do, let's just check these all came in. Yeah, they all came in at the same start point. One thing I'm going to do is there is an action you can perform in Reaper. Let's find where it is. Show action list. Let's filter the action list for silence. Yeah. Oh, so I've given it a shortcut already. Auto trim split items, removing silence. So I'll give it a minus 90 dB threshold. It's a bit, arbitrary. But by doing this and just leaving it a couple of minutes to process this, it'll take out, there we go. You see how all the spaces where there was no sound now, I can see what's going on much, much better. So now I can break the song down visually. And, oh, that's right. So he wanted me to play bass on this song. So at some point, that's another reason that I wanted to do this in this style, so that I can now go and grab a bass at the right point and, actually play that in. So, all these multiple tracks of MIDI, I can see that that's got nothing on, that's got nothing on. Same for that, and same for that, I think. So, they can go, that makes life a little easier. So, I can start to group things at least. So, let's get these drums into a group, and this is where the effects start to fly. So I'm going to use SSD sampler, which is Steven Slate drums. I'm going to start with, for a song like this, a Chris Lord Algae drum kit preset. I'm just going to pick one at random and see how it sounds. Generally, I don't like using presets, and I've said this every time, but one thing I do find presets useful for is if I'm in a bit of a rush, I can pick something that's roughly in the ballpark and then tweak as necessary, rather than spending the hours it takes to get from scratch to where I was headed. That's getting really annoying, and apologies for the dropouts there. Okay, I was using one of those HDMI content protection splitter stripper things, and for this particular stream it's not necessary at all, so I've just got rid of it. Hopefully that'll stop the damn thing flashing and flickering. Anywho, let's see how this sounds now with the drums folded under this. So right, so the original drums are very roomy, probably too much so. Let's solo these. Guessing that's a crash? This happens a lot when I get MIDI drums, is I have to work with mappings and just make sure that whatever mapping the drummer has chosen conforms to something vaguely... Actually, let's just view kit mapping and see if there are options. Map converter? Load conversion. See if the Roland one works. Let's just put that... Yeah, let's put everything back where it was. Yeah, there we go, because having remembered, I don't think the drummer, Paul, is using a TD9, but he's using a TD drum kit, so that should solve a lot of the mapping issues there. So let's now mute the original drums. Interesting that there are... Oh no, yeah, okay, so there's a cowbell track, so the cowbell I'm going to throw on. And I use Superior Drummer, but what I actually, yeah, that's okay, that's fine. What I actually use for things like a cowbell is I've got the old Latin Percussion Easy Drummer, which has some really good sounds in the way that I tend to use it. That sounds fine to me. That I can't see any reason why I would replace that, actually. I'm just gonna get rid of all the MIDI for the... And there's probably the tambourine sound? Yeah, so I'll just keep that. And hand claps. Oh, we'll cover them in reverb, but that'll be fine. Ah, right, so he sent me the guitars to reamp. They are clean DIs, in fact. Let's see what I want to do with this. Let's work it backwards. So, let's put a cab on one of these, wall of sound, 4x12, big beast, because that's mine. Why would I not do that? Ribbons, because I love ribbons. Which one have I done this on? So let's just... Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's get some grit going through an amp. Recently did a thing with all the amps I have. Let's just see which one I want to use. Let's use the PRS Dallas. Turn off the cabinet, of course, because I'm already using a cabinet. Yeah, that's nice. Take the master down a bit and make sure it's not too heavily gained. I don't think it's that kind of song. And then just copy those over to the other guitar. Let's bring the mixer up and do it that way. Aha! There's a nice little shortcut that I learned, which is if you drag the effects button of one channel to another channel, that copies all the effects on that channel. So I'm going to make a guitar group channel and put all 4. Now, so that's the main 2 guitars. Now I'm going to use the same cabinet on these other 2, but I'm going to use the PRS Archon because that's got a nicer higher gain tone, although I might not necessarily metal it up here. But the track's called Main Power Chords, and power chords to me means power. So oh, they're the wrong way around. That's a good start. This could be quite mix ready actually. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna turn the mix up on your side. There we go. What I want is for you guys to be able to hear everything nice and clear without me going anywhere near the red on the master. There we go. Don't want those power chords to overtake anything, I just want it to sit. And I'm probably going to have to clean the edits up here a bit, because I can hear a lot of background noise when the guitar's not playing because of the high gain. Yeah, so if I hit S for split, that's a nice way to cut background rubbish out. Because that strip silence thing that I did before is great, but I'm very conservative with it because I'd rather have to leave stuff in and edit it out than it removes stuff I wasn't aware of and me never know it was there in the first place because I don't know then how to get it back. Okay, so I'm nearly there cleaning this guitar up. Okay, so I'm just going to fade away the noise there on both of those channels. And I think I've got myself a reasonable guitar performance there. So that was nice and fast. You've just got to pick the most appropriate amp for the appropriate tone. And to me, those just sound like really well recorded guitars. Now, if I want to, I could, what's the word? I could then mix the folder to match the rest of the track, which is what I'm going to do later on. Oh, yeah, that kit is just too loud. Mixer, mixer, mixer. You know what, that's one of the downsides of SSD4 is it's not ideal in terms of level, so I'm going to call up my first virtual mix rack here and wait for it to load because it does take ages to load. And then what I'm going to do when it loads up is I'm just going to put trimmer on there and just take it down. I'll probably come back to the drums and separate them out. But we'll come back to that when we've got a much more confident idea of what we've got in terms of tracks. This is still kind of what I would call pre-production in many ways. This, or at least kind of what the mix assistant would do. So, trimmer, trimmer, trimmer. Okay, so... Right, so these guitars are going to absolutely drain my headroom for processing power. I mean, they're already taking on nearly 3% of the processor each already, which doesn't sound like much, but this is a 50-something, 60-something track mix. So I'm going to quickly freeze, I'm going to freeze them to mono. And what that does, if this works right, is it's going to keep all these, keep the original audio files, kind of bake in the amps. So then it will be as if I'd recorded the real amps with a ribbon mic, and that's all I get to work with, which is kind of how I think of things anyway in terms of stages. I think of kind of in virtual mixing, because you can use virtual amps and stuff, you do have the freedom to go back and change everything, which is great, but for clarity of mind, you should really be going, that was one process, this is the next process. Okay, so now we can see, finished. Yep, processor usage very little. Good. So there are more guitars by the look of it. So these should be panned left and right as well. Oh, there's some nice sub going on in that that kick there. I'm liking that. Right, but I do need that to sound like an amp. I'm going to use a slightly more pokey cabinet for this. I'm going to use a big baby. Let's use a greenback, why not? With a 409 mic, because that's fairly neutral. And what amp do I want to use in front of that? Let's use that that Dallas amp again. Make sure that's the right way round. Turn off the cabs. And boost it. There we go, kind of almost a clone-ish drive. Okay. Yeah, it's got some character to it. I like that. So that's all I want out of these two tracks, so I'm going to freeze them to mono as well. Again, keeping the processing amount down by the time we get to what I would call the real mix. Oh, there's a little bit kind of feedback happening because this mic is going straight back into the open back headphones. Note to self. Okay. I think the audio's starting to go because I've started using this new thing called Voice Meter Banana, which is really kind of cool. I'll show you that. But I'm using this. I'm actually sending the audio out of this computer over the network, and I'm sending that. Yeah, there we go. Let's see what sounds like a 16-bit. Yeah, I don't know if there's some issue. There could be an issue on that side with the. I think I'll have to pause Dropbox. Yeah, because I'm running this cool thing as well, where every file that I do when I mix goes straight to a Dropbox account, which is great for instant backup. But in this interesting, weird kind of setup, probably kind of jamming the whole network up. Okay, so we've got drums, we've got the guitars set up. Right, so I've got, oh, how many vocals? Wow, Ricky. Oh, there's also another 2 guitars, octaves. Wow, so many guitars. Right, so back to wall of sound again. This is typical Ricky. So let's use a 2x12 on these, just for something a bit different. With the big boy neodymium, because it's quite a warm speaker. With a Audix i5 on it, linked, because that makes it sound on both sides. Just because that's something a little different. And let's use that V9 by PRS, just because it's a slightly different amp. And let's just solo this channel. Okay, so a bit easy on the master there, buddy. Ugh. Turn that off, that's not very nice. Okay, so I'm bringing the treble back up, but without the bright switch on there. Oh yeah, cabinet's still on. Oops. Don't really want a cabinet through another cabinet. That sounds quite nice. Take that. So I'll probably want these to be lower down in volume, but otherwise. Yeah, okay, so this is why whenever I'm working on one of Ricky's tracks particularly, I freeze all the guitar virtual amps down, because there's a lot of them. It's kind of his writing style. Oh, what did I do? Right, so that's... I think I said to him once, yeah, doubling vocals, it makes it sound nice and big, and doubling guitars left and right sounds nice and big. I think he took that to heart, because, yeah, there's lots and lots and lots of it. So let's listen to the main vocal now.
It seems so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. When I'm with you I can see there's sunny yet tomorrow, without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me, I can see what you can see, the love you've given me.
Right, so there's a million vocal parts. So let's do a bit of a pre-production on this as well. Let's use Virtual Mix Rack. And what we're going to do is we're going to build up a main vocal chain that we would use on every mic. So let's listen to the main one.
But then you came a-calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees. But love can seem so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be.
Now the mic that is used sounds a little bit dark, so what I'm going to do is I'm cheating. I'm using the Slate Classic tubes because I have an ML1. And I'm going to stick the FG76 after that. And then the London preamp with a bit of saturation. The VCC channel at the end with the Brit 4KE. And the F176 vintage in there, not really doing too much.
But then you came a-calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees.
Turn it off.
Love can seem so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me, I begin to see what you can see. The love you've given me, it knocks me down, it sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper.
Okay, and I'm going to use virtual tape from Slate there as well on the 16 track mode. Just gives it a bit more fatness.
But then you came a-calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees.
Okay, and I'm going to copy that across all of these vocal tracks. And that's going to, well, on an older machine that would absolutely tank things anyway. This is a fairly processor efficient thing. Let's just have a look at these vocal doubles as well.
Hey, you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be.
Cool, so let's just have a look at
me. I begin to see what you look at me.
So I'm going to copy the effects. This is going to be a lot of freezing of a lot of tracks. And this is just pre-production as well. I am going to go back and do things like putting quite heavy compression on the main vocal and then panning everything properly and then possibly taking some low-end EQ out of the backing vocals, yada 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 yada. Vox squeal, what are this?
'Cause you've given me a vision of the man.
But yeah, all I'm really doing is taking this from a home recording which has been probably done on a fairly standard interface and making it sound a bit more like it was recorded in a big studio. It's kind of a cheat method, but I'm not that bothered. It's fine.
The path, oh yeah, oh yeah. When I'm the path, oh yeah, oh yeah. When oh yeah, oh yeah. When I'm with a better path, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, oh, that's kind of cool sounding. Right, there's a lot of these. Oh my word. Oh yeah. So this is just going to be a little bit tedious copy pasta. But then we're going to, freeze these down, which means that then that'll be as if they were recorded there, but with no additional processing overhead on our side. It means that everything will sound like it was on a nice tape machine, and we won't have to suffer the slowdowns and crunch. There's a few more O's on the Vox. Let's listen to the O's.
Seems so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah, oh yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow.
Okay, I'm quickly going to throw an auto-tune on those backings just to make them, because there's so many vocal layers, and I want them to fit. So that shouldn't be too difficult because they sounded fairly in-pitched to begin with. So that's D major. Yep, we'll copy that across all of them. So they might have their own group now, but from track 49 all the way back to 22, gee whiz. Right, render these all to mono. This is going to be the equivalent of printing things to tape. And yeah, just kind of committing and going, you know what, that's fine. That's only going in 3 times real time, which is pretty slow on a pretty fast quad core as well. Even though it's a laptop, this machine that I'm working on, it's about 2 inches thick. It's more of a battle station. Behind me talking, you can probably hear it sounds like a hairdryer now. Yeah. So how was your day, guys, in the comments section while we're waiting on this? Because this is the kind of thing that, if this isn't slowing me down now, whoa. Right, so it's now got to panic and make all the peak files for those. Those now look significantly louder, and they're all in mono, which means I can actually see what's going on better. So, let's make an overall vocal group, because I do like to folder things in Reaper. Let's hide the mixer for a minute. Grab all of these, put them in that group, and then let's find anything that isn't the there we go. So I'll call them backing vocals, and then have another one that's Vox. Oh yeah. And then maybe another one for those oohs, because then I can control them as groups and not have to have 10 instances of an EQ or 10 instances of, so I can compact those in the view. So same with these, if I go B Vox O's, that's another 4 lots of an EQ or a compressor or whatever that I will not need. I can just do it the once. So then there's all the keys, and that's it. So we'll need to add a bass, and then that's the track. So we're doing much, much better. So let's say these oh yeahs, let's go left, right, like a marching band. Let's also do that with the O's, so they go left, right. And that'll take them out of the stereo image and leave more space for the main vocal. And then there's the main vocal, and there's a double there. So what I'm going to do there with the double is I'm going to use micro shift by Sound Toys on the double. Because that makes things sound much wider. When I'm with you, I can't see. But it doesn't. It means that I can keep with there being 2 main vocals, I can keep one dead center, and then I can play with the other in the stereo field. And then if the stereo image is compromised, say someone's listening in mono, the main vocal is solid. It's right down the middle, and is not affected, and should be front and center. That's gonna help a lot. So then let's make these left and right as well. Let's just be ruthless and make them hard panned. Why not? Calls and responses. And then we'll see where we're at. Rather than just blindly mixing beyond this point, this is mostly organization, if anything. That's why I'm not really playing too much. So let's now play this all back. The one to light a better path, oh yeah, when I'm with you.
you can see the love you've given me. It knocks me down, it sweeps me off my feet.
Sounding okay already. So far we've got Stephen Slate drums, a virtual mix rack that's just a trimmer and a micro shift, and we've got that sound already. I mean, there's work to do here, but we've just conquered a large amount of everything right there. So onto these keys. So let's have a look at this arpeggiated bass. Sounds to me like that's slightly out of time. Let's just move it a little bit later. Yeah, that note seems to have been... There we go. I like it. Even though I've had to turn it way down in the mix. Let's get virtual tape in there and slam the tape. And then get a virtual mix rack in there. And where's trimmer? There we go. So now that's... There we go. And the timing issue remains. Sounds to me like it needs some compression. Let's see what we can do. Because it's pulsing, this is going to be a tricky one. There we go. By using a very fast attack and release, I'm actually just controlling the level of the different notes. What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to drive that harder. And I'm going to use, if I've got it, Synth Warmer by Kazrog. It's a Moog style filter, and I'm just going to use it to take the top end off. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Ooh, I think I'll be keeping that, thank you very much. That sounds nice and fat to me. that has actually warmed up my synth. Just make sure it's a clean edit so we don't get the background ground hum there. Right, so there's a lot of synth action going on here. So let's call this synth bass, and then have a keys group. Because what I'm probably going to do with all these keys is something similar to what I did with a lot of the vocals, which is warm them up, drive them through kind of virtual analog stuff. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. Could have sworn I had some sort of noise removal thing. But anyway, let's just use synth warmer on probably all of these, but just different degrees, different amounts of filtering. Because that's quite sharp to me, for example. I'll bet that's 50 hertz. Yeah, it is, and so that'll be 150. 200. You know what? Let's just scoop it all out. Why not? First. There's a lot of geek going on it. Right, so these need to be lowered down. That just needs filtering by the sound of it. And take a lot of the low mid weirdness out of these. Oh, you get a synth warmer, and you get a synth warmer, and you get a synth warmer. Yeah, so I just need to un-rubbishize the sound of the piano. Behave yourself. Okay, so yeah, it turns out I don't have the MIDI for any of this. Well, that's okay. With a good bit of filtering, we'll get rid of a lot of that noise. And with my favourite sound toys, is it Pan Man? Yeah, Pan Man. We'll get that nice. There we go. In my mind, that's how an electric piano should sound. Oh, big synths. So, what are you? You get a synth warmer. So without that, gentle with epic. So next, synth warmer but flicked the other way. Yeah, nice. And this one, absolutely synth warmer. Yeah, that filter, you can hear the resonance. That just... Oh, it's so 80s. Ah, yes. Oh, Shane, you're brilliant. I'll just turn off the synth warmers on these again. That sounds okay. This... So 80s and so much more focused as well. I mean, yes, it's got louder as well, which is arguably a thing. But now I've kind of tamed everything. So how long have we been going? About an hour, I guess. So from here, yes, that's the sound of me scratching my beard, I do apologise. This is where I start to throw in lots of... Why am I throwing more tracks on tracks on tracks on tracks? This is where I start to get effects happy and build up my master bus and then work backwards from there. So, room verb, gate reverb, plate reverb, delay quarter, and delay stereo. Okay, so let's very quickly build these up. So I like to use Slate's Verb Suite Classics for all my reverbs. it's got the ones that I like, and after that I use an EQ to scoop out all the low end, no matter which reverb it is, because otherwise that eats up my mix. So for my room reverb, which can be used on dry sterile tracks, I use a Bricasti M7 Studio B Close. I just, for whatever reason, like that synth bass, for example, let's just take this as an example of where I would use this. So it sounds like it's nice, but it's right in the middle, it's mono. Anyone tells you shouldn't be using reverb on bass probably doesn't know what they're talking about, because it can massively fill it up. Although that's where the caveat is, if you noticed on the reverb I just said, I cut the low end out of it. I use reverb on quote unquote bass sources, but not on the low end, i.e. not on what people call bass. That's why I'm quite particular about the language I use. For me, a bass is usually a bass guitar or a synth bass which has higher harmonics in it, but that doesn't refer to the low end. I use the words low end to refer to things generally 100 Hz and below, because being a bass player, if that was just it wouldn't be great. So anyway, moving back on, this is the synth bass dry, and this is it with some room reverb. Too much room reverb, admittedly, but if I find a happy medium, suddenly that sounds so much bigger. So then I'll get a gated reverb going by, I'm just going to copy Verb Suite Classic across these three reverbs. I'm going to change the device to be, oh, what was it? Yes, so the short non-linear reverb from an RMX, yeah, from an AMS RMX16. And the plate reverb is the, if I actually just reset this, reset all parameters, it's the Lexicon 480A plate. That is my plate. It's as if when they picked the default state of the plugin, they knew what sounded good. Hey, how about that? So let's have a listen now. Let's just get the vocal group. The oh yeahs, where are they? Where are the oh yeahs? Yeah, oh yeah, there we are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they,
Oh yeah.
so there's a bit of roominess in there already, but if I get that on the gated reverb,
Oh yeah.
and on the plate reverb,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I can hear him putting the headphones down on every take, so I'm just going to clean those edits up there. Oh yeah, I've frozen it already. Great. I have to unfreeze that just to get rid of them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Split them as well and just...
Oh yeah.
There we go. Might want to take more low end out of that plate reverb, because it's absolute cow for being muddy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All those headphones being put down at once.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, so...
Oh yeah.
And where are those O's?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so those oohs sound like they want to be more... Let's just take the low end out of them and just lift the top a tiny bit. They want to be more reverb than they do actual vocal.
Oh yeah.
I can probably take the volume down on those oohs now.
Hope that you would
Right, so it doesn't sound like we're any closer to a mix yet, but this is where it's all going to start coming together very quickly. The levels are all over the show, but I didn't actually finish my effects. Let's get my echoes and everything going. So let's bring something out of the... What have we got in the keys group that I can use to test my delays with? They'll probably do. Okay, so I use Echo Boy for everything. It is my go-to. I'm going to use the same low-cut EQ on the delays as well. And for the normal straight down the middle delay, I'll use the studio tape. That's some pretty noise on there, but you know, when you're mixing, you do what you can with what you've got. So, note to self, don't overcompress.
Shadow in the breeze, but then you came a-calling, you set my heart free falling, your glamour brought me to my knees, but love can seem so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. When I'm with you I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me, when you look at me, tomorrow tears and sorrow. When you look at me, I begin to see what you can see. The love you've given me, it knocks me down and sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be.
Okay, it's time to go back to basics and split the output from this. So if we go to take the splitter off that and build multi-channel routing out for selected effects, which is something you can do, and then have the kick going out of 1, the snare going out of 2. This is something that is easier in Superior Drummer because you don't have to faff about with all this kind of stuff. But toms out of 3. There is just an option in Superior for multi-channel routing, and it's quite nice. So effects.
Giving me a vision of the man I want to be. It's with me, 'cause you've given me. I begin to see what you can see.
So overheads out of 5, rooms out of 6. I'm going to send the other room out of 6 and the effects out of 6 as well.
I begin to see what you can see. The love you've given me, it knocks me down and sweeps me off my feet.
So I can just delete all these other tracks because that's just overkill. I can go kick, snare, toms, hats, overheads, and room, and that'll make my life a bit easier.
I begin to see what you can see.
Right, so I'm going to use virtual mix, right? The first thing I'm going to put on there is a trimmer. Take 8 dB off, just not a random number, but not far off. And I'm going to use a Hollywood preamp after that. Then I'm going to use one of these FGA EQs, not doing much. Then what am I going to do? This is to go across every channel, so I'm going to put one of these Brit 4K E's on, and I'm going to leave it there and not get greedy and just copy that across every track. There we go.
I begin to see what you can see, the love you've given me. It knocks me down, it sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be.
Oh, no. They've gone too deep. There we go. If you try and follow things too deeply, it all goes horribly wrong sometimes. There we go.
An image of perfection.
Okay, so let's just turn off. Okay, so the snare's not hitting me very hard. Everything else sounds decent. Okay, so that's sounding okay. Let's give the toms a bit more low end and a bit less of that gurk in the middle. Let's compress our overheads a bit. Filter the bottom out of them as well. Let's use the monster. Okay, and that kick is way too low-endy. There we go, so I've taken a lot of the sub out of the kick, because as impressive as it sounds on its own, doesn't sit well in a mix. There we go, let's bring a little bit back. But I boosted 110 Hz because around that area, not that exact number, but around there is what you can feel in your chest, but what also works on small speakers and cuts through. Okay, so that's sounding decent. The snare's a bit lackluster, but that's because it's got no verb on it. So if we drag, let's just make the keys group smaller, and that means we should be able to see our reverb now at the end. Just drop this on the room reverb. Let's add this to the gate reverb as well. Add a little bit to the plate as well. Right, and there we go. That's more like it to my ears. Now where did the guitars go? Oh no, let's bring in the rest of the drums. Yeah, that just needs some EQ on that cowbell. Now we've put it in the reverb to really cut that low end out of it. It's got a nice bigness to it, and then tambourine. Yeah, I always like the tambourine to be quite quiet, but soaked in plate reverb. Very Motown. Now let's get the guitars in here. Right, so the guitars sound a little pedestrian. So we don't want them to be overbearing anything anyway. That's one thing that was specifically requested in the mix notes. There we go. So nice kind of subtle, quite gritty but sat back guitars to leave plenty of space for everything else. Those bring, they need a lot less low end, they need thinning out. Not that much. Yeah, okay, so they're there, but they're... Right, so they need a specific dewarming EQ just around the 400-500 hertz, just to take some mud out. Okay, now let's bring the backing vocal. Let's mute all the backing vocals and just leave the main one in for a minute.
I was just a shadow in the breeze, but then you came a-calling. You set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees. But love can seem so galling. The starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. When I'm with you I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you...
All of these sound a little bit ahead of the beat. So I'm just going to nudge them forward by, I don't know, 15 milliseconds, if it'll let me. I'll need to unfreeze it, there we go. Nudge them. And see if it was just an interface delay thing.
I was just a shadow in the breeze.
That's better.
But then you came a-calling. calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees. But love can seem so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be without the tears and sorrow when you...
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and make the executive decision to remove the double vocal until that chorus kicks in, because it's just sounding a bit weird.
I was just a shadow in the breeze, but then you came a-calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees. But love can seem so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be.
And yeah, auto-tune just because I've got limited time.
Oh, yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see. Oh, yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see a sunnier tomorrow. Yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see a sunny.
That's the only time they use that drum mapping in the entire song.
When I'm with you, I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me, I begin to see what you can see. The love you've given me, it knocks me down and sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be.
That's sounding better.
Feel a lonely place at times, an image of perfection while we live in introspection, our sentience between the narrowest of lines. But you destroyed rejection when you brought me your affection. I really hope that you would. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be.
Right, so there's a lot going on here, so the first thing I'm gonna do is try and tame all this with a bit of virtual mix rack control.
I was just a shadow in the breeze, but then you came a-calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees. But love can seem so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see.
Okay, so what I've done there is I've taken out the ultra low end, tamed some of the vocal range and the kind of upper bass, and just poked it out a tiny bit with some air and some 4.8K. And let's see how that sits under the main vocal now.
I was just a shadow in the breeze,
And without.
but then you came a-calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees. But love can seem so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me,
Definitely cueing me to use de-essers now.
I was just a shadow in the breeze, but then you came a-calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees. But love can seem so galling, the starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah.
I'm always a bit more aggressive with de-essers on backing vocals as well, because I don't mind them cutting the S's out, as long as it makes sure that it doesn't compete with the main vocal. So I'm a bit more conservative and frugal with DS's on a main vocal, because I don't want it to turn into a DF. I want it to be some S.
I was just a shadow in the breeze, but then you came a-calling. You set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees, but love can seem so galling. The starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. When I'm with you,
Goodbye, mouse.
I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me.
Okay, so the next thing is
I was just a shadow in the breeze.
There's no reverb on any of this, so let's just give this a little bit of plating.
I was just a shadow in the breeze, but then you came a-calling. You set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me.
Yeah, I'm keeping that harmony a bit higher up, and I hit V for volume on these.
When I'm with you, I can't see. When you look at me, I begin to see what you can see. The love you've given me, it knocks me down and sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be. The world can feel a lonely place at times, an image of perfection while we live in introspection, our sentience between the narrowest of lines. But you destroyed rejection when you brought me your affection. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm with you, I can't, oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see.
So the oh yeahs just need a bit of a low frequency cut, and they need lots of top.
Oh yeah.
And the oohs need significantly less low end.
Yeah, oh yeah, I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm with you, I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me, I begin to see what you can see. The love you've given me, it knocks me down and sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be. I begin to see what you can see. The love you've given me, it knocks me down and sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way.
Okay, so I just added JST clip on the drum bus there, because it just helps to crunch things up a bit and just get them to poke out the mix a little bit without really changing the sound on them too much. That snare really pops now.
I was just a
Using K-clip on the master bus there just to stop any issues. Now let's start to bring in some of the keyboards. Okay, so that harpsichord thing's way down the middle and it needs to not be. So what can we do about that? MDA pseudo stereo. It's a nice little inbuilt plugin. It's essentially a comb filter with a bit of a time delay. And less low end. Okay, so we can have less of that piano.
I was just a shadow in the breeze, but then you came a calling, you set my heart free.
But we can make up for it by having tons of delay on it.
But then you came a calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees.
Yeah, so I never put that last delay in, which was supposed to be a ping pong, probably an echoplex.
I was just a shadow in the breeze.
Completely dry wet as well, much like the other one was supposed to be dry wet.
I was just a shadow in the breeze, but then you came a calling, you set my heart free falling. Your glamour brought me to my knees, but love can seem so galling. The starts and stops and stalling. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. When I'm with you I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears of sorrow.
This is where I wish I had a Boss Dimension C to run these through, because that would be incredible. You know what I do have? Echo Boy. Oh. Oh, you beauty, that's amazing. Hello, Mr. 80s. Right, so I still need to EQ quite a lot of stuff out of these. Let's see if these fit now.
It knocks me down, it sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be.
Okay, so now I'm frantically trying to kind of clear up some of the frequencies in these synths. An image of perfection while we live in introspection, our sentience between the narrowest of lines. But you destroyed rejection when you brought me your affection. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm with you I can see the path, oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm with you I can see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me, oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm with you I can see, oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm with you I can, oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm with you I can see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me, I begin to see what you can see. The love you've given me. It knocks me down, it sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be. The world can feel a lonely place at times. An image of perfection while we live in introspection, our sentience between the narrowest of lines. But you destroyed rejection when you brought me your affection. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me, I begin to see what you can see without the tears and sorrow. When I was just a shadow. Okay, I'm just going to turn up the guitar power chords a bit.
I was just a shadow in the breeze, but then you came in.
And back down a tiny touch.
Of the man I want to be. The world can feel a lonely place at times. An image of perfection.
Okay, so that's a trick that I learned a while back, which was using the FG Red bus compressor with a less than half mix and slamming it at 4:1. By mixing it in a little bit, it just gives the mix a bit more life, and then having the FG Mu doing nothing but being on. The two of them together, listen, turn it off, and then on. It just does a thing. Now, at this point, I'm going to put a quick break in the regularly scheduled programming so that I can add a bass part in, because this whole setup that I've got is going to have to be kind of dismantled for 10 minutes while I do that. And then we're going to cut, and we're going to cut back to having a ready recorded bass part. Don't go away! We are back, and there is now a bass part, so let's have a quick listen. Is that humming coming from... Oh yeah, that's why. There we go. Still had something plugged in that was ground looping. So the bass sits okay in the mix. Might need a little bit of tonal work, but it's just a stock active bass through the Ampeg Amplitube SVT, then through one of my own cabinets through the 2 notes Brit Fridge. Sounds like this. So let's richen that up a bit by using a mix rack. Hit play. Okay, so with a 4:1 compressor, just holding that down a little bit in case there's anything unruly. Bit of thickness with the revival and a bit of vintageness. Let's see how that fits.
The world can feel a lonely place at times. An image of perfection while we live in introspection. Our sentience between the narrowest of lines. But you destroyed rejection when you brought me your affection. I really hope that you would be the one to light a better path, oh yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm with you I can't see a sunnier tomorrow without the tears and sorrow. When you look at me, I begin to see what you can't see. It knocks me down and sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you
Yeah, those synths are nice, but they're taking up all the headroom in the mids. It's that one. Okay, so I need to add a band, and quite a thin band. Look for the high mids, and just take some of that out. There we go. You can already hear my speaking is clearer. If I turn that back on, it's harder to distinguish what I'm saying. With that on, I'll make that a little more extreme. Oh, and same on this one, I think. Take that away. Add this one in. Yeah, because between them, that was just a build-up. Let's try that now.
It knocks me down, it sweeps me off my feet. It's not the way you look at all, it's much deeper and it resonates with me. 'Cause you've given me a vision of the man I want to be. An image of perfection while we live in introspection. Our sentience between the narrowest of.
Cool, I think in terms of getting a mix together, we're pretty much there. So I'm going to render this out now, send it to the client, because the actual submission for entry, this is for Eurovision, the Eurovision Song Contest, is Friday and it's now Monday. So the deadline was tonight to send it over to the client. Chances are I'm going to take this into the studio proper tomorrow, listen through the monitors, make a few tweaks, probably make a few subtle changes based on what I hear there. Also with a set of fresh ears, probably enhance a few things. But that was most of, start to finish, a mix in terms of the way that I think about it, in terms of listening to what I have, kind of a pre-mix, then the mix proper, then the revisions, then adding kind of analog flavour and all that kind of good stuff. Seems to have come together quite well, considering this was a 82 track beast. Yeah, it's come together quite well, really. Why has my mouse decided to just not? Mouse, please. I'm busy. Sorry, I'll do it with the trackpad. Okay, anyway, that is all for today, folks. And so I'm going to wrap this up and send it to my client. So, fast forward a couple of days later, and we are getting feedback from the client. And the client said, absolutely loves it. A couple of changes they wanted. They wanted to hear more bass and more overhead on the drums, which of course to me means change everything. It doesn't, of course, but those are the specific things they asked for. But since the initial mix, which you've just heard, I've had a chance to listen on a home stereo and in a car, and there are a few things that I've changed to my personal taste. Not a lot, just little things. For instance, the kick drum now has that 50 hertz low end thing back. I was up at maybe 70 hertz with this low cut, and that gives us a nice punchy kick, but in context it wasn't giving enough weight in the context of the whole mix, so I dialed that back from 70 hertz to more like 40 just to give it back that low end. Because in context now, and context is everything.
When I'm with you, I can see a sunnier tomorrow.
That just gives a weight to the kick. And then I had to listen to the drums overall, and they sounded a bit, I would use words like sandy on top. It was a bit too, the snare especially was a bit too crisp. And the room mics had this going on. And that snare, it sounds kind of nice, if a little bit too toppy. But in the context of the mix, it was really sticking out as too toppy. So what I did is I reset that back so the room is more neutral. And I really cranked up the overheads and added an 1176 blended in and just pushed the top on the overheads instead, because that doesn't have nearly as much of the snare in the overheads, at least not the under snare, the wiry kind of sound. So that overall balance has brought the overheads forward as requested by the client, but the snare now sits a bit more naturally. I also really cranked the lows on the snare to be +6 there, just to give it a bit more weight in the mix. So not a huge change. The bass I did turn up. Bass, I not only turned it up, I gave it a bit more thickness on the bottom end using Revival, and I put it through a VCC mix bus, which gave it a bit more of a round low end. The guitars, I don't think I changed much. The vocals, I put a de-esser on the entire group higher up, just to catch any S's. That was another thing I noticed. And Virtual Mix Rack, again, just does a nice thing. And then the backing vocals were really a bit too airy on top. So... yeah, so I took the air down, because it was at something like 3 dB, I took it down to 1. It's quite a sensitive control, the air on there. What else? The EQs on these call and responses, in context, sounded good, but let's find the call and responses. Look at me, look at me. Yeah, they were coming out sounding like that top end you can hear on that one side that I just added in. They sounded like that, which in the context of the mix made them really stand out as overly bright. So I've had to tame a lot of the top end on that call and response there. So, and bump the low mid specifically to make them sit outside the main vocal without making your ear go, ooh. So it's almost radio effecty, but not quite. I'm not going for a specific radio effect. I just wanted them to sit outside the mix there, to kind of catch your ear, but not in a bad way. The keys group, there were a couple of keys parts that I just did a subtle tweak. Wow. So much noise. Oh yeah, so I EQ'd these pianos a bit to stop them from being too low mid. And I took those down as well. That's about it. And then on the mix bus, I added in Hollywood and London and New York on the virtual mix bus, because they thickened everything up. But I've blended them in with quite a bit of saturation on console mode at about 35%. Because that just, if I turn them all off, this will all sound a little thin. Now I'll turn them on. Okay, so if I turn all of this off, you'll really hear the difference, because apart from the high EQ here on the FGA, which has its op amp turned off, which is just to open up the ultra top end, the rest of this is just colour on the mix bus. So if I turn it all off, and then on, it all just sounds a bit thicker, a bit more lively, a bit vibrant. And then last but not least, I swapped out K-Clip 3 for Ozone 7's IRC4 maximizer. Same settings, same threshold, same ceiling with bit true peak limiting in there. And for this song, it just sounded more neutral and more clean. I find that K-Clip works for me on rockier tracks, and this one being a poppier track but needing to be a bit cleaner. This setup just sounds a little bit cleaner, especially in the low end. And that was what I was going for in this case, and that was it. That got rendered, and that's now been sent and submitted to the Eurovision Council, so hopefully that'll get us somewhere. So that is it. So hopefully you've found something interesting here, and it's not just been me rambling for several hours, for which I would apologise profusely. Stick around, there are more videos like this coming. If you've got any specific requests for types of videos you'd like to see, feel free to throw them in the comments section below. Hit the like button if you found this useful, and subscribe to the channel as well if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. We also do gear reviews, we also do basics tutorials, we do stuff on Raspberry Pi audio production, and a lot more. So, thank you everybody for watching. I'm Adam Steele for Hot Pole Studios, and thanks especially to the patrons who help us out through patreon.com. You guys are indispensable, you really help with the channel, so thank you very much. And we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, feel free to check out our other videos, as you can find here, or check out our Facebook and Twitter, or our Patreon page, which helps us to make more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.